Good day, and thank you for tuning in to this week's episode with the Real Talks with Doc. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and turn on those post notifications. If you find that this content being of any value to you in your real estate, your development, your builder's journey, we greatly love to hear from you. What's going on, Kay?
Good morning.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Let me wake up, Kay. I think that's what it is, man. I've been on this consistent grind for the past 12 days, strong. Let's get it in.
Today we're talking about sell it or rent it.
Sell it or rent it?
That is the question.
That is the question.
So with housing prices and interest rates where they are in 2025, what's the smartest play for most homeowners?
So people get caught up on, the Federal Reserve lowering interest rate, but those interest rates really do not affect the common consumer. Those interest rates really affect the rate in which banks can borrow and lend money from one another at a high corporate level. But for everyday folks like me, we really don't see the impact of those interest rates. Like you say, the Federal Reserve raised the interest rates by a full point or a quarter of a point, or whatever that point is. Interest rates are still in the sixes, and in some cases, banks are still lending in the low sevens. So that means that minimizes the amount of buying power that you have when you go to purchase a home. Now, what does buying power mean? Like, again, there are times when interest rates are like in the low threes, especially our veterans, man. Those VA loans, 3%, 3.25%. So let's just say hypothetically, when you calculate what that amortization schedule is over a 30-year fixed period of time, or given period of time, I should say, that 3.5%, and let's just keep the number simple, not to make it complicated. Let's just say you got a $100,000 purchase. 3.5% on $100,000 is $3,250, right? But you had that revolving interest that compounds on top of that. That's why they say it's the ugly truth in lending. When you see that ugly truth in lending form over a period of time, like that interest has to be paid back to the bank. So keeping it simple, just if we're doing straight fixed interest and you add $3,250 on top of the $100,000, is a big difference than adding $7,000 on top of the $100,000. And if you're picking up the simple math in that, if you're just doing an apples to apples comparison, that's a double increase on interest that someone is paying on top of that loan over a 30-year fixed period. So let's just say, you qualify for, $104,000. Again, interest doesn't work like this because it compounds over time. And they have interest calculators on the internet. So you can just Google, mortgage calculator, and just Google, calculator for buying power or first time buyer. Like there's all kind of calculators in there for you to determine like what this interest actually pans out to be at a certain interest rate. So if you just took $3,250 and you multiply it times 2, you actually end up with $7,500 if my math is correct. $6,500. So you can see at a 7% interest rate versus just doubling a 3.25% interest rate, you now double the amount of interest that you need to pay over a 30-year period. Now again, it's a greater multiplier than that. Use a calculator. My little peanut head doesn't do math that fast. But you can see that's double the interest you're actually having to pay over the same period of time. And what that does is that reduces your buying power significantly, right? And in reducing your buying power, because you have higher interest rate, that means the houses that are bigger, the houses that are going to have more nicer finishes, more amenities, you lose out on that because your buying power has been diminished. So the question is, when is the right time to buy and when is the right time to rent? Well, that depends on the situation, and it's always dependent upon the situation and your tolerance, your pain tolerance. So for instance, if you are an investor right now, or even a buyer, any kind of buyer, right now is a great time to buy. If you have the liquidity that makes sense for the deal. And what do I mean by that? If you're going to invest in a property at a high interest rate, and especially if you go look at hard money, you're still in the double digits, 14, 16%. That may not be a good investment, even though you may be getting a little less than what you ordinarily would in a thriving market. If you're a buyer, and again, you're still at a 7% interest rate, and you're renting and you need to buy, well, it may make sense to start to invest in something that you have ownership in, that you can start to build equity in as opposed to renting for another year, going into another year lease, and you have thrown all of that rent money away and you never see a dime of that money come back to you. That may make sense, but again, it's always about looking at the numbers and always about looking at your situation. Because the good thing in that, if you're a renter and you need to buy, which again, my position is don't pay somebody else's mortgage. Find a way to pay your own mortgage. You have all kind of people out there saying, oh, rent, don't buy. I mean, people got crazy perspectives and crazy views. That's why you have to make it make sense. That's one of my new favorite sayings recently. Like, make it make sense for me. Because like what you're saying right now doesn't make sense. So if you can get into a situation, even at a mid 6% interest rate, low 7s, and you are actually contributing to the equity and buying the principal down on that mortgage over the next year versus average rent around here is $3,000. That's $36,000 a year. Yeah, 12 times 6 is $36,000 a year. You just gave away. And now, sometimes you have no option but to rent because your credit is messed up, because you've lost your job. And my heart goes out to all of these government employees that are just on pins and needles every single day, not knowing what this current administration is going to do. And shout out to my wife, Maria, who works for the government, been working for the government for over 25 years. And it is her birthday today, so we love you. Keep being the magnificent queen and the magnificent woman that you are to us and our family. So shout out to Maria for her birthday on this September 30th, 2025. Yeah, we're gonna come back and look at this 10 years from now and say, man, 10 years went by just like that. But yeah, Kay, it just depends on the situation, and everybody got a different situation. So you just got to make the math make sense for you and always position yourself to be in a winning situation where you come out on the better side versus the worse side.
So how should homeowners weigh immediate profit from a sale versus the long-term cash flow potential of renting?
So my position is buy and hold as long as you can. And don't touch the equity in it. Let that become your investment. Let that become another source of retirement income that you're going to need in your latter days. Everybody's living longer these days. You know, we just have a more healthier society. The nursing home business is a booming business because everybody's living longer these days. So if you don't have to tap into the equity of your home by selling your home, just let it build over time, because one thing we know about the dollar historically is that it always, right now the dollar is down 10% in comparison to other, world currency. That's one of the biggest hits the dollar's taken in the last 2 decades. I was just reading those stats the other day. Now, what does that mean? $1 today is going to be worth way less than $1 in 10 years from now. Literally. I mean, just go look at it, right? So if you know that real estate is always going to demand a higher dollar value in the future, then let that asset increase in value versus just holding on to that dollar, having that dollar sit in the bank and not working for you. So there's always the best position to invest. And real estate is our game. We know that best. So we invest heavily in a lot of real estate, and we encourage our clients and the people around us to invest heavily in a lot of real estate and let that equity grow, let that asset grow. Right here in DC, just when I moved to the area in 2000, I mean, there are some neighborhoods I could have, bought property in the 2s or 3s. You go to those same neighborhoods 25 years later, you cannot buy anything in the 200, 300,000. Everything's $1 million plus. Same house, same neighborhood, same land, same city, same people, different day. And that's my point in that. And another 25 years from now, real estate, the average home in real estate is probably gonna be $2 million. Just think about when you were a kid. I remember my mom and dad bought their first home for like $47,000. Man, $40,000? Even in little old Orangeburg, South Carolina, where I'm from, that same $40,000 house now is still in the low 6 figures. Again, that's my point. That the value of the asset is always going to increase and outperform the value of the dollar. And we get so accustomed to holding on to our money so tight and wanting to see it in the bank that you got to let that baby go and pat that baby on the butt and say, go out there and work for me. That's that Warren Buffett way. Let your money make money in your sleep while your money produce other money that make money for your money. And it all comes back to you in your sleep. And that's what we encourage people to do.
What are some of the tax advantages or risks homeowners should consider before deciding to rent out their home instead of selling?
So capital gains taxes is real. I used to know this math. But they can tax you over 30% capital gain taxes. The one thing they ask you on your loan application, your exit application at the title company is you're selling your property. Is this your primary property? And if this is not your primary property, do you live in state or out of state? Now, if you live out of state, and most of you have gone and sold real estate before, you know they burn you. Like that tax that they hit you with, 30% plus, is a real tax. You sell a house and you make a $500,000 profit. That's a nice profit. And you pay 30% on that. I can do that quick, man. That's $150,000. Poof, gone just like that. So there are ways to offset that by you can actually transfer your money into something called a 1030 exchange. And in that 1030 exchange, you're saying to the government, hey, look, I'm not taking income on this. I'm not taking profits on this. I'm just going to park this money here until I decide to invest it in my next real estate purchase. And you can park that money for, I think, as long as 90 days in that 1030 exchange. And then when you find something within 90 days, you simply roll that money into that and you defer the taxes on that. Not avoid taxes, defer the taxes on that. So there are different tax strategies that you can actually use to avoid, yeah, we pay our share to Uncle Sam, but Uncle Sam doesn't have to take all your money. The rich write the tax codes for it to work for the rich. We as the common everyday folks, we got to figure out how to tap into that game and also take advantage of those legal savings just like the rich and the wealthy do.
For those thinking about becoming landlords, what are the biggest challenges they might not be prepared for?
I say screen your tenants like the FBI. We screen for 3 key things when we screen our tenant. And it's paramount. Don't get desperate and just rent your unit because you're excited and you feel desperate to rent it. That's the worst mistake that you can make. Treat all applicants equally, but vet all applicants the same way. The 3 things we check for is, first thing is credit. If you don't pay your creditors back, if you don't pay the people back who have entrusted you with their material, their cars, their properties, it's very likely that you're not going to pay me back. So we look at credit and we look at how well people just pay back the bills that they've agreed to pay back. How well they do good business. The second thing we look at is, yes, we do look at their landlord-tenant history. So we have a software that we use. It's not our software, but we vet our clients through the software, and it actually can pull court documents to see how many times they've been in landlord-tenant court in the United States. And if you see somebody in landlord-tenant court very often, it's very likely that they're going to do something wild to try to put you in landlord-tenant court. And nobody want to waste their time and resources dealing with drama and nonsense. And the third thing we look at, which we have a legal right to look at, is their criminal background. If someone has a crazy criminal background, we just don't rent to them because it's a safety issue, number one. And number two, those people made bad choices that you don't want to affiliate yourself with. Now, I believe in forgiving everybody. And I believe that everybody had redemption. God forgives us all. But look, man, if you got a murder charge and something crazy, or evading the police, or writing bad checks, or fraud, you just don't want to be affiliated with that type of stuff. And I'm gonna say it out loud, you worked very hard to put you and your family in a safe position. Congratulations to you for having a rental property to rent. You just want to eliminate all drama. You just want to eliminate any kind of distractions that would take away from you being on your A game to go out there and get that next rental property. And you don't have to deal with that. If people make bad decisions in life, wish them well, but you don't have to take on the risk that comes with those bad decisions. So those are the 3 key things that we screen for, Kay, and we're very strict on those things.
Okay, last question. Looking ahead, how can a homeowner evaluate whether their property will appreciate more if they hold on to it, or if it's better to take the equity out now?
So there are market indicators that can tell you if your property has the potential to appreciate in equity. And the first thing you look at is the master construction development plan for that neighborhood, for that community. And you can go to your local city government and they have meetings on this. They have to vote for budgets on this, and you can actually see a master development plan for the immediate future, the next year, all the way 25 years out. Some city governments have a master construction plan for projects that are 25 years in the pipeline in the making. Like, for instance, the big hype is they finally decide to bring the Redskins stadiums back to the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. That was kind of weird, saying that you're the Washington Commanders, not the Redskins, but your stadium was in Maryland. How many teams actually function like that? your stadium is not in your city or state. Well, I'm not a big sports fan, so, but that was kind of weird. But so for years they've been talking about this. For years, RFK Stadium the old stadium has just been there, like just in this deteriorating, dilapidated state. And I just drove by there the other day, and they actually have pretty much everything demolished down to those big steel frame beams that actually support the entire stadium. But I say all that to say this: at some point, the residents there knew it was coming. At some point, there was always talks and always a plan to bring the Redskins back to DC, potentially at that site. And now that it's happening, all of those prices of the real estate that's locally there is going to shoot up, because what they're going to do is they're going to come in and they're going to revitalize, they're going to redevelop that entire, not just where the stadium is going, but that entire community with local businesses, local shops, new real estate, new townhomes, new condominium buildings. And those people are going to be in a position to sell at a very, very pretty penny than they would not have been if that stadium had not been confirmed and coming there. So one of the key indicators you can use is go down to your city local, go sit in on some of those city meetings that's open to the public. It's your tax dollars that, these officials are being paid with. So go down there and see what's in the construction master plan for the, upcoming future. And that will give you an indicator of, the desirability of people wanting to be in your community and buying your community. That's the number one key indicator that people can take advantage of that they don't think about.
What are some words of wisdom that you have for us today?
Man, Kay, it's funny that you talk about this topic. How do you know when to buy? How do you know when to rent? And I was speaking to one of my trade partners yesterday, Darren Treadwell. Y'all support him, master plumber, master HVAC guy. Actually took me to lunch yesterday, and I'm sure Darren, you don't mind me sharing this. I call him Big DT. And he's like, man, Doc, I've been wanting to, link with you for a minute to get on your schedule because I'm ready to buy my first investment property. And I've just been, procrastinating. I said, DT, let's be honest, you just been scared, man. You've been acting in fear because you've been calling me for months talking about let's meet. And I want to first congratulate you for stepping outside of your comfort zone and finally having this lunch, right? And I say that to leave you with these words of wisdom for today. Don't show up for your boss. Don't show up for your wife. Don't show up for your kids. Don't show up for your friends. Don't show up for your family. Don't show up for anybody in life every day except for you. You have to dig deep and show up for you to be better, to be greater, to be more excellent than you were yesterday. And when you tap into the power of that, you start to tap into the first step in unlocking the potential of greatness that all of us have been blessed with by Heavenly Father God. And when you don't show up for greatness because of fear, when you don't show up for greatness because you haven't taken the time to educate yourself in the things that you want to go after, when you don't show up for yourself every day simply because you just don't have the love that you should have for yourself, you will never tap into that greatness. And when you start to step outside of your comfort zone and show up every day just for you, show up in the best health that you can be, show up in the best mental state of mind that you can be, show up in the best spirit that you can be, show up with the greatest love that you can bring to any room. Then and only then when you start to water the greatness that is in all of us that's just waiting to be unlocked. So yesterday, Darren took the step of just showing up for himself to say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to have this lunch. I'm going to tap into a friend that I know will give information to me willingly. That's the first step to Darren now being on the path of greatness in his first venture of buying his first investment property. So I want to say shout out. Everybody send some positive energy. Let's clap it up. Okay, that's what I'm going to start adding. Every single time we close out, I'm going to be shouting out somebody in our circle and them stepping into their greatness just by simply making the decision to show up for yourself every day. Because if you're not willing to show up for yourself, here's what I'm going to close up. You're not going to show up for your wife. You're not going to show up for your kids. You're not going to show up for your friends. You're not going to show up for your family. You're not going to show up for your frat. If you're not willing to show up for yourself, you're really not going to show up for anybody with the greatness that God has blessed all of us with. Till next time, I'll see you at our next construction site.